Welcome everyone to Nightcap Season 2. Candid Cafe Conversations. Today, I have the absolute honor and privilege to be seated at the virtual table across in this wonderful metaverse cafe with the one, the only Xerjester. Zero, how are you today, my friend?
I'm doing well. How are you?
We established this before. I'm tired.
Yes.
I think we can all relate at any point of the year, but especially this time of year when it's being recorded and also when it's being aired. It's just a busy time of year.
I can guarantee you, by the time this airs, I will still be exhausted. 100%.
I absolutely agree with you. But despite being exhausted, the two of us today, we're here. We're gonna chat. I'm gonna learn more about you. Hopefully, you learn some more about me. We're gonna hang out, and I have been excited to just chill and chat with you because I've never gotten the opportunity to do that.
No, we haven't.
It's different when you're just sitting in a stream and like hearing stories and everything, and then there's this is cooler speed. I like it. I'm excited, so thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So for those who might be watching and or listening who don't know who you are, what are some of the things you do that people might know you for?
Ooh, that is one hell of a list. So some people might know me for my time doing voiceover for ADV Films and Studio Sentai. Some people might know me for the stuff I published to DM's Guild. Some other people might know me for my streams where I teach people how to do everything from world building to miniature painting and terrain building, or my Dungeons and Dragons reviews. Or they may just know me from my shirts on Threadless. Because evidently word of mouth is getting around, which is heartening and terrifying at the same time.
The internet, it is large and vast, and sometimes it is okay.
Sometimes, occasionally.
Every once in a while, one shining, glimmering, sparkly leaf in a torrent of feces.
Hashtag relatable content.
But yeah, you are an artificer of many different hats and things. I primarily learned about you and the things that you do from people in our shared circles, people like Punkle Nix and Pronouns in My Bio, Sam, and all of those individuals. So I primarily knew you originally from your streams, which were chaotic and full of supports and full of opinions that were very good, that I agreed with
thank you.
A lot of things. So I want to start there and then branch into all these wonderful, this wonderful bouquet of things that you do, because believe it or not, everyone at home, people have more than one thing they do. Human beings, multifaceted.
I'm not an example, though. I'm not an example. I am a cautionary tale. I am a cautionary tale. I have way too many pursuits.
You all can decide that on your own at the end of this. What moral you want to take from this sultry tale. So let's I want to start with streaming and then move on to the stuff you do with streaming.
Sure.
So what initially drove you to, or inspired, whatever the term you want to use, what made you get into streaming? And then what made you get into streaming the things that you decided to stream?
Initially, and we're talking 2017 or so, I had done a little bit of streaming from my PS4. So no bells, no whistles. I wasn't trying to build anything.
Straight from the machine.
Straight from the machine. I just wanted, I knew my friends were watching, so they could see me fuck around in like Elite Dangerous or something. Then cue to 2019, end of 2019. I had a decent enough camera. I still had my really nice mic because of all the home recording that I do. And I remembered that back in the day when I was a guest at a lot of conventions, one of my favorite things was giving panels on the stuff that I was doing at the time, teaching people how to get into voiceover, teaching people how to get into webcomics, teaching world building, sequential storytelling, all that stuff. I just loved being able to share my knowledge freely and get people excited and passionate about trying this stuff themselves. So when we started really getting rolling on the streaming, and all of a sudden, holy shit, I'm an affiliate. Holy shit, what the hell are bits, and why are people sending them to me? It kind of naturally evolved from that. And I'm thinking at the time, because even to this day, there's not a huge crafting presence on Twitch, right? But I thought to myself, I love watching this stuff on YouTube, watching maker videos and things like that, where they go through the process and talk about the ins and outs and the pitfalls. I could do that with all the stuff I love doing: terrain building, miniature painting, prop design, storytelling and writing and things like that. So it just became that natural extension from, I don't get to do a lot of cons anymore, but I can still basically hold these panels and hopefully get people out there to try this stuff, but also try to give them a good time. Because that's my I guess you can say chief goal in all the streams I do is, first and foremost, I want to entertain people. I want to give them a distraction for even a couple hours from the dumpster fire that's happening outside. And if I can get them invested in a new hobby or something, so much the better. Right.
Oh, I had a thought, and then it just went, whoo, I got stuck in the dumpster fire.
Mood
is what happened. I was going to talk about the timing of the streaming. That's what it was. Because a lot of people that I've talked to in the last season and this season, and also me personally, a lot of us seem to have started more actively pursuing a streaming situation in 2019, which I think is really interesting, that there's, at least in our circle, the circle
definitely
the circle that I'm in, a lot of us started around 2019, and I just think that it's interesting that it was the year before a large world-altering event, and not the year of. So I thought that was super interesting, that it's seeming to be consistent so far with a lot of the people that I'm talking to. So, but I wanted to talk about your terrain crafting and painting and all of that sort of stuff, because if you haven't seen any of Zero's streams or anything like that, is this stuff that you put up on YouTube as well? Do you put up any of your crafting stuff on YouTube? Okay.
I'm very, very bad about putting up videos on YouTube. I need to get better about the problem is so many hours in a day, and even though I have done professional video editing, I don't have time to edit every single stream, right?
Yep.
So normally, if it's something like an illustration, I try to do a time lapse. But 90% of the time, I just throw up the stream as is, warts and all. Here you guys go. It's there. Have fun.
Yeah. If you haven't seen then the streams that Zero's done, you basically start from nothing, quote unquote, and you make these dioramas that are like perfect for miniatures, and you make these amazing like you were talking about prop pieces. Like if you're a fan of Critical Role, I saw you made Percy's pepper box. I at least once.
I'm making another one in the future very soon.
And it's so fascinating to watch you do that. I wanted to talk specifically about the dioramas. Are those things that you keep in your house? Because as someone who makes stuff, how do you have the space to keep all of those in your house?
I slowly rotate it out. There are a few key pieces that they're never going anywhere. Those are now heirlooms.
Right.
But I've sold a few. But by and large, I tend to either give them away as prizes on the stream, or if a friend particularly likes one, I'm like, here you go. Because like you said, space is at a high premium. So all the stuff I make cannot be contained even in our apartment, let alone in this one room.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's you're taking like products, but then you're turning it into like, usually the things that you're making are like nice flat pieces of whatever, and then they're like, whoop, that does less than easily stored. Because you also Am I mistaken that you take commissions or took commissions at one point?
Occasionally, I will take commissions. Yeah, occasionally I'll take commissions. Because I spent so much of my life early on, in particular, I did a lot of freelance illustration work, up to and including for those old Facebook games, which that's where the rest of my soul went. So because I don't necessarily have to do that stuff anymore, I've become very, very picky, and it's either because it's a dear friend who needs something, or it's someone who comes to me with a genuinely cool idea that I think is going to challenge me. Then I'll probably take the commission on.
Okay. Yeah, that's really cool. Do you the other things that you do though, if any of you wants a piece of Xerjester's artistry, is like you mentioned, you have so many cool shirt designs.
Thank you. I was just gonna say so many shirts. I don't know about so many cool things.
Well, okay, but I've seen your so you have a threadless shop, right?
Yeah.
If y'all, it's gonna be linked everywhere, so there's no excuse for you not to check it out. But there are, I wish I had an endless wardrobe, or like the ability to like have like a digital t-shirt that I could just cycle through designs, because there are so many on there that are just witty and silly and like absolutely gorgeous, and all of them are so cool. And as I'm definitely not been a digital artist for as long as you have, but I was curious, how do these ideas come to you? Any of them? The ones that you like the most.
well, here's fun fact about all the stuff you see on my Threadless shop. I have exactly one rule: if it is not something I would wear or hang on my wall, it doesn't go up in the shop ever. And that's kind of a general rule that applies to all the things I do, particularly when it comes to my streams. If this is not something I would enjoy watching, I don't do it. As far as how the ideas come to me, I keep either my notebook close at hand, or I keep a notepad file open. And literally anytime an idea strikes me, I write it down. Doesn't matter how ridiculous it is, doesn't matter how silly, I write it down. And then usually once a week, I will go back through the list of ideas that I have and say, okay, this one's giving me ideas. I can actually see a design in my head. We're going to go with this. And that's maybe one out of 5 of the ideas to actually write down. I mean, literally, I can pull up a notepad file right now, and one of the shirt ideas just says soup. I don't know why I wrote it. I don't understand what was going on in my life at the time. Soup. Maybe it'll be something someday. But it really just boils down to, I get an idea, and if I can imagine either some cool typography with it, or some cool graphic design, or a cool illustration, that is 90% of the heavy lifting work. And then after that, I just open up Photoshop and I go to town. But I tend to always favor either something that's absurdist humor, because that's absolutely my jam, or something that, when I was a geek growing up, when I was a wee little geek, this would be the kind of shirt that I would want to wear. Or things that are just very, very important to me. Like someone recently had tweeted out about them attending Pride, their first Pride, with one of my rainbow t-shirts that have all the TTRPG dice, and it says, "What's your story?" beneath it. That's something that's very important to me, because I'm pansexual. So anytime I can kind of connect with other geeks that way, it's a nod. It's the secret handshake. I mean, you see it all the time if you ever go to conventions or go to a game store and you see someone wearing a particularly cool geek shirt that you get the reference, and you're like, I see you. So that's basically the vibe I wanted to go with all the designs I've thrown up there.
Yeah, you make a good point that's actually echoed in one of the other talks that I had, which is that idea that there is this sense of unspoken camaraderie-ship when you see someone. It's a lot easier when it's at like like you were saying, like at conventions, or at like places where individuals such as us nerdy cool kids hang out. When you see you walk into a space and you know that the majority of the people in this space share at least one thing in common with you. We're all freaking geeks, all of us, in our own ways, but like we all have that, you know, that same, for the most part, we all have that same like level of like, we came here for a reason, you know?
Yeah.
And being able to see things like your shirts or like other cool geek or nerd or pop culture things out there that you're like, oh, I get that. Like if I was to wear this shirt out in like somewhere, somebody be like, is that The Expanse? I love The Expanse. I love The Expanse.
Same. Hard same.
But you know, things that you have on your shop, there's a lot of them are like TTRPG related. Some of them I feel like could be TTRPG or just are cool and neat and like inspiring and all of that good stuff. And I do think that your shop definitely reflects what you were talking about of your spaces of being like all of the designs that I see pop up are ones that I would be proud to wear because they're either cool or inspiring or anything like that. But they also reflect that idea of like through your art, through the things that you're making, you are supporting other people. Because you're allowing, like when it comes to either your pride stuff or just your nerdy geek and gamer stuff, like those are groups that don't always feel the hug of support. You know, it's often, I mean, and we fall into those categories. I can pretty confidently say you and I do.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Of not always being on the good end of the compliments or the love and the like, hey, you can do that. Because a lot of the things that we do, like the stuff that you mentioned, like art and fine arts like theater or acting or anything like that, those aren't always things that people look at and are like, that right there is a person who's got all of their shit together. They know what they're doing. They're gonna have a lucrative career. A lot of people don't think they don't think that, like, you know, people who focus on the arts in any capacity, whether it's you know, teaching or like the more practical stuff that you do, you don't get a lot of support often, and well, you get a lot of hate more often than not.
Western society, in particular, when it comes to the arts, the way I like to phrase it is society values it, but views it as a high school elective. This was the class most people took, basically because they didn't care; they just needed to fill an elective. So, I had made a tweet, and I've made this statement several times before as a freelance creator, but people forget that art is a luxury item. Period. End of. It's one of those things. Do you need it? No. Will it enrich your existence? Yes. So we need to value professional artists as professionals, and we don't. Consistently, we don't. So if I can, at the very least, show people, because I'm also one of those people who will be the first to say, don't monetize your hobbies out of the gate, please. For the love of the gods, do not monetize your hobbies out of the gate. But here is something that can bring value to your life, something that you can apply your creative energy to. Because the biggest thing to me about creativity is it really is a kind of magic. You are taking something that is in your head, that only exists in your head, and you are putting it out into a space. I don't care if it's writing, painting, sculpting, music, whatever. You are taking it out of your head and putting it out into the space where it can now exist in someone else's head. And they can have their own value and their own take and their own perception of it, but it is another lens through which they perceive you. And that is an undeniable magic. And if I can encourage more people to explore that, particularly to do so with some kindness and some understanding, and not toxic positivity, because that shit is nonsense, but just kindness first. Then if I can do that and keep my lights on, I'm happy. That mission accomplished. It ain't much, but it's mine.
That's true. Yeah. It seems like it's a strange thing. To me, it's common sense. If you are for this example, on Twitch streaming or on YouTube Live or anything like that, if you are on a live streaming platform, why wouldn't you be a kind person? Like, I feel like there's so many very, very popular individuals in any streaming space who just like, their default is just like, look at all these losers, like completely, you know, bashing other people or shitting on other people, and they get so much attention for it because other people are like, oh yeah, look at this, and that just feels like, just why I don't get it.
Because hate and anger are popcorn, and everyone loves watching popcorn get made. That's basically what it boils down to. Hate is easy, anger is easy, and it's sort of like watching the child have a temper tantrum in the middle of a grocery store. Politely, you won't say anything, but most people are going to kind of stop and go, oh, what's happening over here? And it's that same there, but for the grace of whatever you believe in, go on. And there are people who have wrapped their entire content identities around it. It's one of those things, I don't grok to it. I definitely don't flock to it, but I understand where it comes from.
Yeah.
And I wish we had a lot less of that, but we are who we are.
Yeah.
Alas. It's why reality TV exists.
Yeah, it is one of those things that those human flaws of like the schadenfreude of like watching other people have a shittier time and seeing like, oh, well, at least it's not me, right? Ho, ho, ho. I feel like that's kind of what drives it. And that's like one of those things that I'm like, dang, it sucks to be a human sometimes. Because I definitely have those moments. 100% have those moments. Because we're human beings most of the time.
I mean, let's face it, I have rubbernecked at a car accident. I mean, you can't help it. It's like, oh, you may not want to linger on it. And you definitely don't want to intrude upon someone else's tragedy if it was a tragic outcome. But we all do it. Yeah. It's recognizing that and stepping back from it and not engaging with it. I think is the hardest part, is simply not engaging with it. Because for some of the people watching this content, this is unfortunately as exciting as life is going to get for them right now, or at least that's what they convince themselves of. So they get to wallow in this stuff and just go all the way deep up to the hips and live in this world. My problem with that and the people who are perpetuating is you don't come out of that without a stain. You don't come out of that without scars. I mean, back when I was wee little geek, and you know, before the golden age of geekery, when you know, liking Dungeons and Dragons could literally get your ass beat. It was tempting. It was all too tempting to embrace the Schadenfreude. It's like, ooh, what is the tea today? Who is having a terrible time? And I'd feel a little bit better about that. But I carried shit with me that I had to unlearn because of it. So again, I can't, and I won't name any names because I'm not trying to start any feuds. But for those people who are profiting off of it, all I can say is do a moral inventory, because eventually that money's going to stop, and I wonder what you're going to be left with.
Yeah, because there's also this like understanding to a point. I try to be myself with a few, like, as few reservations, enough to be safe, but like I try to be myself whenever I'm in any kind of space, whether it's like you meet me in Meet Space, you see me on Twitch. I'm a little bit sillier because like I can be, but I try to be my most authentic self on any place that you see me, because one, I don't have the brain power to remember how I acted with one person versus another person. I don't have the time to remember that. But I find it so frustrating to try to put up a facade. Like, and my point in this is there's a lot of people on YouTube and on Twitch and everything that have characters that they play, and that's totally, I totally respect it. It's totally like a thing. If you want to do that, absolutely fine. It definitely gives you like a separation from your work life, if this is something you do all the time, to your personal life.
Mhm.
The problem comes when your facade is an asshole. Nobody's gonna believe
yes.
you unless they like know you in like a very, very personal way. No one's gonna believe that you're not an asshole in real life. Like, it's the unfortunate thing with like movie actors or TV actors when they're playing really terrible people. A lot of people only see that when they see the other person and not realize that, you know, they're two separate people. That's a little bit of a stretch, but it's a similar idea, except like you're willingly putting on this really shitty role and then turning around and expecting people not to take that into your everyday life. It's like, what you doing? What you doing, friend? That seems like that takes a lot of energy.
Oh yeah. And again, it's the whole thing. Was it all worth it once the money stops? And yep. I don't think it will be.
Yep. This kind of, it doesn't quite segue, but it kind of segues into you did a lot of voice acting.
I did, yeah.
And I kind of wanted to. That's a little bit that I've heard you talk on and off about. Mm-hmm. But wanted to kind of. Can you tell me about it? Tell me about like, you know, whatever you want to talk about. I was going to say, just tell me the whole thing, and that's, I'm sure, a bit.
Well, it's initially it was back when Flash was a thing. I got a few gigs basically doing voices for people's Flash cartoons. And it just so happened at the time I lived in Houston, where ADV Films was located. And the process they had was basically what they call a cattle call. You give them your name, your information, everything else. And then whenever they are casting for a bunch of new shows, they'll call a bunch of people in, give them a reading test, just a general one. And then after that, all the directors will listen to the takes from the day and they'll start casting you. It was about a year and change after I had sent it, and I had totally forgotten that I had actually sent it in ADV. But I was friends with Kyle Aber at the time, who was doing a lot of voices for Dragon Ball Z and things like that. And he had an audition at ADV. So I offered for him to come stay at our place that night. And then when we would all drive him to ADV in the morning. And that's when he said, you should check to see if they have a spot open so you can audition too. Like, okay, so like probably not, but I'll give them a contact. I sent them an email and they're like, oh, we were just about to call you because your name came up. So went in, did the audition. So the way ADV did it, I don't know if no, I do know Studio Sentai also does this too. I can't say the same for Funimation. Is they basically have you come in and read a part based on something they've already put out, because all they're wanting, and this is a little tip for all of you trying to get into voice acting, no one cares what voices you can do. No one cares what voices you can do unless you were specifically hired as a sound-alike. No one cares what voices you can do. When you get into the booth for one of these kind of auditions, they literally want to hear how you sound. How you sound, how you act, it is voice acting, and how you take direction, and that's it. And then it was shortly after that I started getting a few bit parts and walla, which is usually just the characters in the background making noise and things like that. And then I landed my first big role, which was Masanobu Hojo in Gantz, which my mom has not seen, nor will she ever see, because Gantz ain't for the kiddies. No. That's when the directors at ADV also realized that out of all the actors they had in their current stable, I could scream the loudest. And we discovered that they had me do a death scream, and it tripped all the meters red. So they had me back away from the mic, and I did another one, and it tripped all the meters red. They had me stand outside the booth with the door open, pointed at the microphone from about 15 feet away, to let loose with the screen, and they're like, okay, perfect.
Incredible. Astounding.
Yeah, after that, it was, I mean, there was Gantz, there was Samurai Gun. I got to be a part of the redub of the original Macross, which was really cool. And Myocan and Elfin Lead. There was a fair few ones. And then I did a couple when we moved back to Houston, and I hooked up with the folks. ADV went under and became Studio Sentai. So I got to go back into the booth for a few times at Studio Sentai while we were still in Houston too. And my voice was on Adult Swim. What?
So cool.
That one ranked up there for there was a day at a convention I was at, and one of the other voice actor guests came over and asked me what I thought of my IMDb. And I'm like, what is an IMDb? Well, it's internet movie database. And I'm like, okay, what is that? Well, it's kind of like Wikipedia, but they list everything you've done. Why do I have one? Someone made it for you. That's weird. And that still kind of weirds me out to this day.
What are some of your personal favorite roles that you got to be a part of?
Ooh, definitely Hojo and Gantz, because it was a character that is 100% unlike me in real life. I mean, first off, they are a rail thin twink of a male model. Huge egotist and narcissist, and I'm the first one to admit I am a giant fucking dork. And very, very, very self-centered. It was fun getting my head into that space to even play the character. Another fun one was Miki. I got to play Miki in Parasite the Maxim. I had not even heard about the show when I got called into the booth. I hadn't read up anything on it. I hadn't seen any episodes of it. And then to see these weird bioparasites things on people, and I'm just like, okay, oh boy, I'm just gonna have to roll with this. And it was also the first time I got to play anything that was really villainous. That was my only chief regret for not still being in Houston, not doing anime voiceover work, is I never got the chance to really play a villain. So I'm still kind of chomping at the bit to do that. Yeah.
Pop quiz question.
Yo.
If you could, any animated recording, any individual that you would like, specifically villainous type person, regardless of if they've already been, portrayed or anything like that, if there is someone that you would want to put a voice to, specifically a villainous voice to, which ones pop to mind? Three.
There's three.
Okay,
I have three.
Top three. Let's go.
First, Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII. Secondly, the Joker. I would love to take a turn at the helm of the Joker. Yes. And third, if for whatever reason, and it's not beyond the realm of reason now that we have a Vox Machina animated show, if for whatever reason there was an animated version of Curse of Strahd, please let me play Strahd. Please. I would pay for the privilege of even, doing a few lines of Strahd.
Do you want to give us a taste of Strahd?
You want to taste of Strahd? Let me think.
This is exclusive content, folks. This is why you show up to these things.
I am the ancient. I am the land. I am Strahd, and you are trespassing.
Come play Strahd with me.
Hell yeah.
Oh my god, that's so cool.
Thank you.
Tasty. I studied theater when I was in college. That's what I had my degree in. And it always makes me so giddy inside to hear people who really enjoy what they do, whether it's voice acting or on stage acting or anything like that. It's just give me more. Give me
Eater
more.
kids for life.
love it. I love it. I don't work in theater. I haven't. I want to do voice work, and I'm starting to just like get a little bit more comfortable with it. Especially, I'm doing a lot more story based video games and stuff on my stream, so I can work on diversifying like how I can use my own voice, because it's like any other muscle, friends. You got to use it, otherwise you don't know what to do, what it can do.
It's true. It's scientifically proven that if you do not exercise your vocal muscles, they will atrophy, and then you will not go in the voice actor's Wheatie box.
Yep. Because your voice can do a bunch of different things. Like there is some like limitations, of course, but based on genetics and stuff. But your voice can do so many things, and it's got so much more potential if you know how to use it. Just like every other part of you, you know.
Very much.
And it's so like I love talking about like acting and things of that nature, because I specifically studied design because that's all I had the money for at the time. But I loved my parents introduced me to doing drama in theater when I was in like middle school and high school, and I was homeschooled my entire like schooling career until college. And my parents made a homeschool drama group for me and my siblings that then kind of blew up. Like it was for us, but it was for other homeschoolers as well in our community.
Yeah.
And it got pretty big. But like that started the like real drive to like, I just like it. There's also this dichotomy of, I love doing this. I love like the performative aspect, specifically of like the appeal to me of voice acting is I love performing. I hate attention. I would love to do all of these cool things. I want you to hear my voice. I don't know what to do with my body. So that's why stage theater is always so very daunting for me, because like I can do stuff with my voice. I'm very emotive when it comes to my voice, but when it comes to my face, when it comes to my body movements, I'm just a nightmare. I don't know what to do with my hands or my ass. And if you try to have me do something with my feet, it's just going to go bad, you know?
That was honestly my favorite part of the entire voice acting experience, because I did stage acting up through high school, a few very small performances after that. But just being in the booth, I have no mark. I have nothing I have to do but either stand or sit in front of this mic. I am literally rocking at the time like my Rurouni Kenshin t-shirt and some shorts and my sneakers, and we're good. The funny follow-up to that, though, is the number of times I went to a convention. Now, for those of you at home, because it's very hard to tell, we streamers only exist from the waist up. I am 6'2". All right, I am 6'2", and
a giant tree like me.
So, the one thing I got the most whenever I went to conventions was you look nothing like you sound, and I'm like, I would hope so.
Well, because you even demonstrated it. You have a range of like ability to do voices. You've got that very deep and very like resonant and gravelly, and like one that some would stereotypically say fits with your physical physique. And then you go like way up there, and it's like really not. It's not hard.
Yeah, so that was the other best thing. The directors, ADV, who had not heard my auditions, but just knew I was on other stuff, they would call me into the booth, and they would give me characters that were like really, really bassy, and then they would hear my natural timbre of voice, and they're like, we genuinely thought you were like a baritone or something. What is going on? And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. My genetics are weird, okay?
I'm tall and also soft. Ooh, woo, 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 woo. But yeah, that's also like talking about meeting in meat space. That's something I also get a lot, is not like I look different than I sound, because people see me and hear me at the same time a lot. But they're always like, oh my God, you're so much taller than I thought you were. I'm 5'10", y'all. I'm like, for the longest time thought that like, oh, that's just an average height, right? Apparently not.
Evidently not, no.
Apparently, according to the majority of the populace, I am a tall redwood tree. And I do have the trunks to also back that up. So, listen, we're here and we're tall and we're queer and it's great.
And buying shoes is hard.
Buying shoes sucks.
Buying shoes sucks.
Bad. It's so bad if you have large feet, and on top of that, if you have wide feet, which I was blessed with both, it's the
yeah. Finding anything that is not fucking basketball shoes is it's a mythic journey, really.
It's a scavenger hunt every single time, every time, and finding it not sold out, because a lot of the times, like in stores, at least in like physical stores, they have like one, maybe two pairs in your size if you're lucky. And they're finding them not sold out, because you're not the only person with that shoe size. It's impossible, absolutely impossible. I wanted to talk about something that is I've been wanting to ask you for a very long time. This is we're going back to your creations, things that you've made.
Okay.
And specifically in the streaming space, and maybe it was before then, there's this character that it kind of crosses the bridge between your acting and your creative self, maybe, perhaps. I don't know. There's this character named Oryx. And I would love if you would explain, please tell the class, as I put in my notes, how, where, and why.
So, like, a lot of the things, the in-jokes and whatnot on my streams, shit just happens around me. I turn on the camera and things happen. The puppet that Oryx is, that all started years ago. Every time Catherine and I would go to Cost Plus, they normally would have these very cheap Muppet style puppets, basically. And I'm like, I need one. And she would say, no, you're going to torture me with it. And this goes on and on for years. Then I start streaming, and then somehow it gets brought up in stream, and it becomes a whole thing of like hashtag puppet justice for Zero, or hashtag get Zero a puppet. To the point where our friend Rob decided, screw it, I'm sending him a puppet. So he sent the blue fellow you see behind me there. And I brought him on stream, didn't have a name, didn't even really have a voice at the time when I first brought him on. I started talking, and it was this voice, and I actually made a joke at my own expense of, is this my voice? Did you lose a fucking bet? And one of the then regulars in chat that came up with the name Oryx, which is just zero backwards. So
oh my God.
my alter ego, my id, my split personality, I guess. And ever since then, I don't get to bring him on as often as I would like, because again, big dude, giant ass hands. The puppet doesn't actually fit my hand. So puppeteering Oryx for any longer than about 10 minutes at a time, my hand starts to really cramp up, and it really gets excruciating. I'm working on that though. I have plans for a cheap PNG tuber version of Oryx that eventually I will bring on the stream.
Yes!
And it'll allow me to do Oryx and
Justice
not hurt my hand.
for Oryx and also for Zero. Everyone is happy. Everyone like that.
He's getting one more workout, because I still have to make the third Threadless commercial starring him. I have to complete the Arizona trilogy.
Yes, you do.
We're going to be doing that.
You do. Is there places where people can find the first two?
YouTube. Yeah, you can find both of those on my YouTube.
They will be linked. Do not worry. I will find them.
And eventually I'll have some weird premiere events where we show The Arizona trilogy.
Incredible.
Oh,
Incredible.
my mom's very proud of me.
It's like a strange fever dream watching them. I've seen both of them, and they're like max 2 minutes each. And y'all are not ready.
This is definitely
so
my absurdist
wild.
humor unleashed. I just go off. Like,
It's
this
so
is the kind of
funny.
stuff. If I had been in the market of the day, I probably could have got picked up by Adult Swim as one of their writers, simply because of stuff I come up with.
Oh my God. Oryx forever lives in the part of me where a heart would be. There's only Oryx. Only Oryx forever and ever. Amen. Well, one of the last things I wanted to chat with you about is something that I'm trying to chat with everybody about this season, because it's something I love and want to talk about more and more and more, is tabletop RPGs.
Yes.
Because it's something I can't get out of. So the first question I have for you is, what is one of your favorite systems that you have played thus far, or at this moment? It can be, you know, a new one. It can be an old one. It can be whatever one comes to mind first. It can be more than one. If you want to nominate more than one.
My favorite system that I love to play currently is definitely going to be Dungeons and Dragons 5e. And that's because no shame, no disrespect to the people who were helming 4th edition. That was definitely not my jam. A lot of good things in it, definitely not my speed. Now, my favorite system in general that I've played up until this point is Dread. I adore Dread. I want more people to discover Dread. That is my bucket list, to run a live game of Dread at a convention someday.
I want to be added to that bucket.
Hell yeah.
Toss me in your bucket, please.
Yep.
Yay.
There's room in the bucket. Let's go.
Excellent. Ooh. That's wonderful. I have been, this sidebar, this has been an excuse for me to think about the TTRPGs that I play, because the list is ever growing. But I haven't mentioned D&D 5e, because I think I might have done it in passing, but it is honestly one of my favorite to run, because I'm comfortable in it. I've played it a lot. It is a system that, yes, it has its faults. It has its flaws. I'm not gonna at any point sugarcoat that. What it does have, though, that is good, is that it has the groundwork for you to be number crunchy if you want to, for you to say no thanks, and have more of like a primarily narrative focused experience. It has the looseness, once you get more accustomed to it, to kind of fumble your way through numbers and stuff, because in the end, numbers don't matter unless you make them matter. And like, that's sort of stuff that can be transient to other TTRPGs, but for me, it's come so naturally at this stage of DMing now for almost 8 years or something like that. That like, it's now like second nature of like, yeah, that makes sense. Let's do that. You know, and it's just, it's a nice little comfort blanket of like, I know D&D 5e. We can go there today, please. If anybody tells me that they want to do a one shot and it's a game I've never played before, if it's D&D 5e, I'm almost always like, oh, hey, I'm like, oh, I know that one.
Exactly.
And that's not to say like I'm not fully into jumping into a system for a one shot that like I've never played before. If I'm asked to run one I've never played before, I give me at least 3 weeks to panic, and then I'll probably say yes. But it's just a nice little comfy blanket of familiarity that is just nice to go to every once in a while. I have a home game that's D&D 5e that's been on for It's been off and on with different people for like over 3 years now, with different campaigns and everything. But it's just so I just think it's pretty neat.
It's just neat.
It's just
No,
neat.
it's also something I have to keep reminding people of because, of course, internet tribalism, for or against D&D, blah 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 blah. And yes, it's the elephant in the room. But here's the thing: I need people to take a step back on this. As someone who designs mechanics for this game, as someone who designs adventures and subclasses and everything else, there is a reason it is the elephant in the room. And I promise you, it has nothing to do with the shows that have been running it. It has nothing to do with any larger advertising campaign, because when 5th edition first dropped, D&D Next, as it was called then, the only big kind of platform it had was the fact that the Acquisitions Inc. folks had picked it up for their live plays, and those were strictly theater before they went to YouTube. The system works. The system itself is, of all the TTRPGs that I've encountered in my now 30 years of playing various TTRPGs, it is the easiest to get damn near every type of player from every echelon into, and it's easy to pick up, easy to learn, and then it's as complex or not complex as you need. They did their homework. They designed a good system. You don't have to like it, but don't knock it because it's popular.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things about D&D is there's a lot of drama around D&D. A lot of it is very well warranted, and understandable. But as a TTRPG system, I think there was a really big push against playing D&D for the sole reason of there's other games out there. I 100% believe that you will be a better player of D&D if you don't just play D&D.
Yep.
Just in general, you'll be a better TTRPG player, a better GM, storyteller, etc. if you have a variety of games under your belt.
Absolutely.
And you can 100% play a game once and be like, that's not for me, but you played it. You understood the mechanics enough to play through at least one session.
You gave it a go.
Exactly. And then if you are someone who is like me, who enjoys picking things from different systems to put into your games, regardless of what game it is, like for example, in my D&D campaigns, the general idea, the very loose idea of clocks from Blades in the Dark, or from
Another
the
system I want to play.
Yeah, the Forged in the Dark suit.
I want to play it.
Is fantastic. I love the idea of clocks, of things just ticking down over time, which is just a concept, but it's a concept that was made, for me at least, very possible because of the Forged in the Dark system. Or for Powered by the Apocalypse. My God, if I could tell you how much Powered by the Apocalypse has affected how I run games. Like, Powered by the Apocalypse, also the Kids on Bikes system.
Oh, Kids on Bikes.
Those two powerhouses, in my opinion, have influenced how I run D&D now because of things that are universal. So, for example, Powered by the Apocalypse. I talked about it on one of the other recordings. It is one of my favorites, specifically Urban Shadows, but Powered by the Apocalypse is great in its simplicity. It has a fail-forward system. You fail, yes, but you always gain experience and you always learn something, but it's usually at a steep cost.
Yeah.
But the gradient of success and failure is not something that is super fleshed out in D&D.
No, definitely not.
It is, you either succeed or you just don't. But there's no degrees of success except for like a natural 20 or a natural 1 sometimes.
They talk about that. I can tell you this specifically. It's not a spelled out gradation system. Because one of the brilliant things I think Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition does is, in the vast majority of its books, it tells you that these rules are guidelines. These are not physical laws that you must adhere to.
Yeah.
So there's a section in the DMG when it's talking about success, failures versus DC, giving the DM carte blanche for any number of things that might happen. Because let's face it, we don't talk about critical fumble tables anymore, and those used to be hard baked into Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Mhm.
But for the people who want to have that stuff in front of them, yeah, it's way too murky. For the
Mhm.
people who want to have that little bit of freedom, like one of my favorite things is the no but type of failure, or the
Mhm.
yes however type of success.
Mhm.
And those are touched on a little bit, but it basically just says, here's all the various things you can think about.
Mhm.
What do you want to have happen? What is your particular stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that's also why I never, even if someone rolls a 1, there's not something that's going to be catastrophic, unless we're playing like in a hell game, like Descent into Avernus, and it's like you're literally among devils.
You're in the Tomb of Horrors. You're not supposed to succeed.
Sorry.
If you roll a 1, oops, it's in the rules. Yeah, 100%. And it's the idea that, like, I'm as of this recording watching through Hyper RPG's Kolok, their backlog of Kolok, which uses the Kids on Bike system. And one fantastic show. I'm watching the backlog so I can watch the stuff that just aired because I want to get all of the like juicy lore. But lore aside, the system itself, it's always reinforced that there are it is not necessarily just that you meet your goal, your target number, whatever it is. It is, if you far exceed it, you will still succeed, but you will succeed exponentially with some extra benefits. If you fail, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world, but the farther you fail, the worse outcome it will be. And those are the sorts of things that I really enjoy. And those are the things that if you just play D&D rules as written, raw, as they say, you don't necessarily, by just reading the books, you can maybe pick that up. But it's through me, at least, it's through watching or playing or experiencing these other games and these other groups. Playing with new people has really opened my eyes on how to be a better player, how to run games in ways that are more engaging, ways that can bring a little bit of extra life to what you're doing, that I wouldn't have gotten had I just stuck with the one system, you know, that I was playing at the time. You know, so this is,
have you ever played 7th Sea?
I have not.
You would
I have heard about it.
7th Sea.
Yeah.
Just from everything you've been saying, you would absolutely, it's one of my favorite systems. And it's
is
literally
it
all about
pirates?
It can be, but it can be a lot more than that too. Ooh. It's basically all of this weird fantasy Europe thing. So everything from the High Armada and piracy to local royal intrigue and lots of swashbuckling. Listen, you play the hero.
That sounds sexy.
You're not here to die. It's very hard to die in this game. You're here to see whether or not you could swing on the chandelier while crossing blades with the Count and things like that. It's what I love that
delicious.
System so much.
That sounds so much fun. What is one of so I know that you and I also have done streamed games, which are we did Tales of the Loop. We did a Tales of the Loop one shot over on Nomadic's channel. And it was a delight. It was super fun. But that's not the only I am too. I really am. But that's not the only streamed game that you've ever been a part of. And we know, you and I, streamed games are vastly different from home games, from off-stream games, online, anything like that. What I want to ask you 2 questions. The first one is quote unquote easy. It's a question. The first one, what are some of your favorite characters that you played in streamed games?
Can I count the games I've run?
Absolutely, you can.
Okay. Right now, I'm playing on a recurring stream, a streamed campaign called Wayward Revelry, and I played Ulfir the Strayed, who is a friend-shaped Furbolg barbarian. I adore playing him. One, because it finally completes my playing all the classes in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, because I hadn't played barbarian yet. But also because he is a very gentle soul, very gentle naturalist, and you wouldn't imagine that off the cuff with someone who is a barbarian, right? Beyond that, I loved playing Mr. Light in the game I ran for my one-shot, The Wandering at Witchlight. The titular characters of Mr. Witch and Mr. Light, I got to play Mr. Light and bring him to life, and that was a lot of fun for me. Really, any time I get to just go off script like that, that's the absolute best for me. So yeah, those have been the big ones, and I haven't had the pleasure of being on many streamed games that weren't. So here's another thing for those y'all listening at home. There's also a huge difference when it comes to streamed games between the ones that are like one shots for that particular channel or a streamed campaign, or the one shots that are for charity, because the one shots that are for charity
wild
are chaos, pure unfiltered chaos. So I've had the pleasure of playing in a few of those. I can hardly remember what characters I played because shit happened. I think there was a circus with it, and then the stream ended, and that's all I remember.
That is something that is that kind of ties into the second one that I have. But like, charity streams are so fun because like doing them every once in a while, it's just so funny because it's literally, you just throw a bunch of people in a room and you just say, here, start talking, and an alligator shows up in the room with you. What do? You know,
and
it's the same kind of energy.
Who's donating purposely to fuck with you? If the streamer has those incentives. Like me getting attached to a bunch of balloons in one game and having to float helplessly, or another one. It was Ashenworks game where he brought Oryx as a minor god into the mix.
Yes.
So they're a lot of fun, but at the same time, I hate to put it this way, they're not my favorite ones to play because I don't get a chance to really explore character or do things like that. To me, it's just having a good time, raising money for a good cause, but the overall stage direction, I guess you could say, is fuck it.
Yes.
Have fun.
It is an exceptional improv one night only show where the improv is just, it's not people trained in improv, it's just people jumping on the stage and seeing what happens.
I'm trained in improv.
Well, see, the example is not quite a 1-for-1, but like but
I have it on my resume and everything.
The question I had, because you have a decent amount of experience running and to some extent playing in streamed TTRPGs, is advice you would give folks, because it is something that it's very big right now. It got even bigger because of 2020, but it's something that is, I think, not going anywhere at any time soon. So it's kind of a two-part questions. Any sort of general do's or do nots that you have for either players or people running. And then the second part, which I definitely remember. It's definitely here, but we'll start with that and I'll see if I remember what it is.
General do's and do nots. The two biggest that come to mind, the first one is a do not. And that is a do not ignore your instincts, I guess I could say, when it comes to approaching any one of these games. Are they using safety tools? Are they giving you enough information ahead of time? Are they telling you everyone who is playing at the table ahead of time? That's huge. There are too many horror stories of people getting really excited and then ending up at a table with someone that has hurt them in the past. Huge no-no. Trust your instincts. Ask questions. You're not being rude. You're protecting yourself. A big do for those of you starting any sort of stream TTRPG, and this is, of course, foregoing the ones that are purely for charity. If this is something on your channel that is going to conceivably make it money, pay the people involved. Pay them. I cannot stress that enough. People ask me all the time why I do not run more one-shots. And simply put, I can't afford to pay people. I run them when I can afford to pay people. I would rather have fewer streamed one-shots or fewer games I can run than to have a bunch of people sitting around being left in a lurch, because their time is valuable, their expertise is valuable, and that is for players. And if you have a producer, same gig, right? Pay them. If it's a charity stream or if everyone's on the same page beforehand, different story. But if you're asking outside talent to come onto your streams and it's helping you out, pay them.
I absolutely 100% agree with both of those. Safety tools are something that I think is, I mean, it's within the last handful of years, I would say comfortably 3, maybe a little bit more. It's not something that was readily talked about in the TTRPG community. It really wasn't. I think it was really when it became more mainstream, especially with like streamed games and horror stories coming out from streamed games or recorded games or anything like that. That people were like, maybe our mental health is a little bit more important. It's like safety is important in both the workplace and in the fun space. In any capacity, every capacity, you know what I mean, folks? So take care of yourselves in all of those ways. And like you were saying about asking questions, if someone gets up in your business because you are asking questions about something that you want to be involved in, that is something you need to consider as well, because
abandon ship.
especially if you know that it is a paid position, this is literally a job that you're doing, you should be able to ask these questions up front and get an answer, because you are dedicating your time, you are getting paid for it. If you are getting paid for it, if you're not getting financially paid for it, you are committing your time, energy, etc. You need to be given these things. You need to know who you're playing with. You need to know a time frame that you're playing, at least an approximation time frame. Like if they're like, oh, it might be like 6 to 8 sessions. Great. If it changes, communicate, everyone. It doesn't matter. You're running games, you're playing games, doesn't matter. Communicate, talk, ask questions. Like it's not easy to do for a lot of people like myself. I am very anxious when it comes to asking for clarification for things, because I don't want to bother people. But it's very important to at least try to communicate with people that you're playing with. And this kind of supersedes like streamed games or online spaces. This is also like really good for your at-home tables and just in general, but we're going to stick with TTRPGs. Just talk to your players, talk to your fellow players. Y'all can talk to each other outside of the game. It makes you better at playing the game if you are also maybe at least cordial outside of the game. It's not a requirement, but it sure helps.
The way I like to phrase it, especially when we saw the Grognard pushback on concepts like Session Zero. I am a high priest of Session Zero. I live by it. I swear by it. To all those people who are like, we don't need a Session Zero. Here's the thing. I have yet to run or play in a game that was harmed by the inclusion of the Session Zero. But I have played in dozens that were harmed because we didn't have them.
And Session Zero is something that is it can be very like nebulous as far as what goes into your Session Zero. Literally all it needs to be, you meet together, you talk about the game that you want to run/play in. It's a two-way communication sort of thing. GM or storyteller tells you, this is what I have an idea of. The players are like, cool, here's some things I want to do. Awesome. You make characters maybe if you want to. If like you are really, really going for it, you go over safety tools. Put safety tools in your games, y'all. maybe you have like an introductory little like test drive TTRPG session in that moment. But it is for you to talk about what you want to get out of this. That is the baseline of a session 0. And like, you can kind of have it, especially with it being a online space a lot of the times now, you can have a little bit of that in written stuff like DMs or Discords or anything like that. But there is something very important about being able to sit in a call together and say with your voices, because you're probably going to be using them when you play games, what you expect. Really drive that home. And as players, advocating for what you will and you do want and what you do not want. And as a GM, also be very y'all just advocate for what you don't want. Don't let people pressure you to play in games with topics that you don't want to play in. Period.
For those of you who are afraid of confrontation, and I totally get this,
I get it.
The people who respect you, your time, and your boundaries will not open up with a confrontation.
Yeah.
And that's all you need to know.
Correct. That is a lovely parting bit of wisdom that I think will just like round out this wonderful, delicious 0 cupcake that we've made together.
Have a cupcake!
A little cupcake. Thank you so much.
Cupcake. Hi.
Listen, the more the merrier for me. I love cake. I fucking love cake. Give me more, please. Thank you for giving me your time. And this was
Thank you so much for
delightful.
having me. This has been a blast.
This literally, like, I mentioned it at the start. I mentioned it DMs. Like, this is something that I've been so excited for. And it's a similar thing for a lot of people, but like, I've been in your circle for years now.
Yeah.
It's weird to say, but we've been like dancing around each other for so long, and I've never just had a chance to just chat.
Hang out.
Hang out and chat a little bit. So this is a delight and wonderful, and you're a delight and wonderful, and I knew you would be, and it's still great. So before we part ways, why don't you let everyone know what you're doing, where you're at, some things that they can find out about you, like that you want them to find, like social medias and things of that nature.
Sure. Well, you can find me pretty much everywhere online at Xerjester, except for TikTok, because someone stole Xerjester and I can't get it from them. So you can find me there at Zero Reynolds. I stream multiple times during the week, normally in the afternoons, teaching people everything from world building and storytelling to doing reviews for new and indie Dungeons and Dragons material, mini painting, terrain making, and occasionally games, which I'm not terrible at, usually. Beyond that, you can find me every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern time over on Dimples and Dice's channel for Wayward Revelry. And yeah, I would tell you what I'm up to right now, but as this is not going to be released anytime soon, I don't know, because I don't plan my life that far in advance. But hopefully,
check out the socials. You'll find it. You'll find it.
Hopefully, by the time y'all watch this, I will have been invited to a few more games, and then of course, I've got my own plans for running more games in future on my channel.
Yeah. And if any of that happens to happen by the time we have this play, you'll see links and things of that nature. They'll be everywhere.
It's time travel.
It's so weird. But thank you once again. Of course, everyone, you can find me everywhere at happycapster. Take care of yourselves, everyone. I hope that your glasses are warm and full of something delicious to drink. Have a great time zone, everyone. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.